Yep, just as people told me. Worst Warframe ever. Alright, so hello everyone, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to share with you my setup for Baruuk, which is an immense amount of fun. I've been playing around with this setup and tweaking it for quite a while now, and I have to say, this is one of the most fun things that I've put together in a long while. It is just a joy to play. So the setup on Baruuk himself requires 4 Forma, where I've added 2 Vs and 2 dashes. And it completely ignores power duration in favor of strength, efficiency, and some range. The what I'm using is corrosive projection, which I feel is the best one, especially if you plan to use his ultimate a lot, because it reduces enemy armor, and his ultimate has an equal IPS plate, so the reduced armor definitely helps. And for the Exodus slot, I chose a rush, which is something that I really like to do, especially on frames that have higher than base sprint speed, because it just makes you sprint so fast. It's a lot of fun, and it's great if you're planning to do a lot of melee stuff. It also matches the polarity in this case, which is nice as well. Then I have fleeting expertise, which kills duration, but that doesn't really matter because we're not going to be using a loot, and it gives me a ton of efficiency, so I can spam his second and third to drain restraint really fast. Then I put on adaptation, which I think works really well with Baruuk, because with all the daggers up, you have 90% damage reduction, and by the time you lose enough daggers to start losing damage reduction, you're already adapted to most of the damage that's coming your way, so you're not taking any damage anyway. Then I decided to utilize the second D polarity with steel fiber, but you can very easily switch this out for a little bit more range or strength, even though you don't necessarily need either of them, and it's nice to have some armor because sometimes everything can run out at a bad time and you can get chunked really hard. Then I went for Umbral Vitality for a ton of health and Umbral Intensify, which gives you a lot of power strength and some tower resist as well. I would ideally want to use Umbral Fiber as well, which would power up Umbral Intensify even further, but unfortunately this setup is too expensive, so Umbral Fiber doesn't fit. Then we have Transient Fortitude, which kills the duration even further, so a loot drains a lot of energy, but it adds a lot of power strength in return. Stretch for some ability range, and this is great for his second and his third. It just gives both of them more range, and this is particularly important for the daggers because we're not using a loot, so we're not getting the bonus range. And the final mode on the menu is Hunter Adrenaline, which converts damage done to your health into energy, and this in combination with fleeting expertise allows you to spam abilities as often as you want. And for Baruuk's exalted weapon, the Desert Wind, I went with a 3 Forma setup where you add 2 Vs and a dash. And this is where it gets really fun. So the mods we have here are Prime Pressure Point for damage, Prime Fury for attack speed, True Steel for crit chance, Organ Shatter for crit damage, then Berserker for even more attack speed because attack speed is marvelous, and we have North Wind to utilize the D polarity, and then Prime Fever Strike with Choking Touch for a ton of corrosive damage. Now, even though we are using corrosive and co, this setup will trash pretty much everything. It will absolutely wipe the floor with the corpus, it will just straight up disintegrate any of the infested, and it will absolutely butcher Ferrite Armored Grineer. The only unit type this setup has a problem with are heavily armored, high-level alloyed armored Grineer, but those are probably the rarest unit because it's basically just bombards and napalms. And that's simply because we're using corrosive, and alloy armor is weak to radiation, which you can very easily switch into. You just take out Prime Fever Strike and put it Molten Impact instead. I really don't get why people keep telling me that Baruuk is bad. I'm guessing it's because of Brozyme saying that he's bad, and people generally don't like to question Brozyme when it comes to stuff like this, but man, Baruuk is really not bad. He's actually quite great, to be honest, and I never thought I would actually say this, but he has become my new go-to fun frame. It used to be Nidus, but I find Baruuk to be more fun than Nidus. And that's quite something, because ever since Nidus got released, he was always my go-to fun Warframe. It was just really enjoyable and fun to play around with his kit, but I find Baruuk's kit to be even better. Especially with this particular setup, because I've tried multiple different builds on Baruuk and I always came back to this one because it's just straight up the most fun and it's about as effective as all the other ones. And the playstyle is pretty straightforward as well. You want to keep up your daggers all the time, which gives you damage reduction but drains your restraint as well. If you want a bigger drain of restraint or a burstier drain of restraint, you can put some enemies to sleep with your second ability. And if you want to push your restraint drain even further, you can just activate a loot and face tank something for a little bit, which you can very much do still, because even though a loot drains a lot of energy thanks to the low duration, Hunter Adrenaline is going to replenish that energy very quickly. And then once you feel the time is right, you can jump into Serene Storm and bust out some moves. So if you own Baruuk, I would very much recommend you give this setup a shot, because it's pretty damn effective, and as I've said already, it's one of the most fun things that I've put together in a long while. Though with that said, I still have to mention a massive downside here, and it's kind of breaking my heart at this point, and that's the fact that Baruuk and Fashion Frame were never meant to be together, and I still can't figure out a good way to spruce this boy up. It's just not happening. I've tried bazillion different colors, different attachments, and nothing's working, so I'm mostly running basic stuff, which is why there's not going to be any Fashion Frame outro today. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.